Hello, I'm Dr. Jodie Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive.
Hello, lovely listeners. Oh, goodness. Sitting down today to record this podcast, I was just chatting with our guest today, who is Vivienne Law, who I'm looking forward to introducing you to in a moment, and just saying how I'm feeling anxious and that I kind of seem to be skipping from one challenge to the next or one deadline to the next. And so Vivienne is the most perfect person for me to be talking to today. And when I voiced that to her and said, I'm just going to take a sip of water and take a couple of breaths, Vivienne shared how she often feels exactly the same. We talked about this snowball effect, and you'll come to understand shortly when we get talking why Vivienne is one of the most perfect guests for me to chat to when I'm feeling a little bit more anxious than usual. So I want to share with you how I came to know about Vivienne's work, and it was because a school here in Melbourne reached out to me. I'd spoken to their staff before, and they really enjoyed having me there as a guest speaker. And when it came time to organise the end of Term 3 Wellbeing Day for the staff, the Deputy Principal reached out and said, hey, we'd really love you to speak again, but also be really nice to work together to create a plan for what else we can perhaps offer the teachers for the day. And so I was excited for the challenge of trying to find some really varied offerings for the staff so they had a choice for their wellbeing needs in the second part of their wellbeing day. And that's how I found Vivienne. And the day was a huge success, and I really wish I could have sat in on Vivienne's session, but alas, I was floating around checking in on how everyone was going with their presentations and what they needed. But Vivienne presented for the staff a sound meditation. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced before or if you've heard of. Perhaps you've heard of sound bath or sound bath meditation. And I'll get Vivienne to explain more about it. I was first introduced to it at a Lululemon event many years ago, and it is the most beautiful, mindful experience. And so the staff who Vivienne delivered a sound meditation for were just absolutely, so relaxed and so thankful for the experience. And one fella left and he said, best 90 minutes of my year. And so I think that's high praise. So Vivienne not only is a meditation and mindfulness practitioner and teacher, she's a mental health nurse, and she works here in Melbourne, in the Bayside suburbs of Melbourne, so not too far from me here recording in the studio in Mitcham. She specialises in mindful self-compassion, and she also helps people to learn to pause and to hold themselves lightly. And she does this through kindness and compassion. And in fact, when I emailed Vivienne yesterday just to confirm our meeting today, there was a beautiful reply letting me know that she checks her emails a couple of times a week and that she's taking a lovely self-compassion break too, actually, in the coming months. And we can all take a leaf out of Vivienne's book because she really is practicing what she's teaching. And in this chaotic sort of busyness that we all tend to kind of live in and work in, we need to take time out for ourselves, and we need to really pause often to look after ourselves and to show that kindness inwards as well. So, Vivienne, it's been a long intro. Thank you for being so patient, but welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jodie. It's really nice to be on here and connecting with your listeners.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's something that is hard for people to do, isn't it? To meditate, become more mindful, stop and give themselves that time. And so I'm really looking forward to talking about that aspect of your work. But I'm so curious. You've got this incredible blend of skills and experience. And I really love to find out a bit more about your role as a mental health nurse and kind of what does work look like for you? Because there are a lot of listeners. Look, I've been hospitalised for my mental health once, and it was a really positive experience. There may be listeners who have been as well. There may be listeners who may be in the future or maybe know of someone who might benefit from some extra help. So if If you could paint a bit of a picture for us about what your workday is like and what the experience is like for the people that you work with as well.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose I'll begin by providing a little bit of just a history as to like how I came into what I do now. I started nursing in 2020, which was such a fab year to start nursing.
Oh dear.
But no, I actually think it was probably a really good year. You just get thrown into the deep end, and anything beyond that, like, it can only get better, right?
Yes.
So, yes, I went straight from my degree into mental health nursing. And I was so in love with it when I trialed it as a student on placement that I just dived right in. And when I started my role I'm a registered nurse. When I started my role, I was working on the wards. So I spent the first 12 months rotating through 3 different sections of the hospital. And ward nursing in the mental health system is not too dissimilar from general nursing in that you arrive for your shift, you collect a handover, you get given your patient allocation, you go and meet and greet them. It's just that what you do in that shift time and what you do for people looks a little different. So we still do our baseline observations, getting people prepped for appointments or procedures. The hospital that I work at runs TMS and ECT, so treatments for depression, anxiety, and a collection of other conditions.
Just before you go on, could you please elaborate on TMS and ECT?
Yeah, sure. So transcranial magnetic stimulation. So it's a far less invasive treatment for, say, depression. It is where a plate is placed onto sort of the side of your head, almost not quite the temporal area, but just a little above that. There's left and right-sided treatments, and it delivers these little stimulations quite in rapid fire. It doesn't actually hurt too much. It just sounds more uncomfortable than it is, but people can come away with a little headache afterwards. But that's more of anywhere between, say, a 1 to even up to 4-week treatment course. So some people will do it maybe once or twice a day, and that either shortens or lengthens the whole process. Whereas ECT is a little bit more invasive. We pop people under anesthetic for that. So you have a little pre-op period, and then there's the whole 5 to 7 minutes that ECT actually goes on for, because it's a very quick procedure, but a procedure nonetheless that people go under anesthetic for.
What does ECT stand for?
Electroconvulsive therapy.
Thank you. No, that's okay. That's okay. I know in the world of medicine and nursing, acronyms are aplenty. So sorry for putting you on the spot, but I just I just think it's really interesting because obviously depression and anxiety can go hand in hand, and I'd like to start talking more about depression on the podcast as well. But I think it's really interesting for us all to learn that, you know, beyond talk therapy and exercise and medication, that there are other treatments. Of course, there are many, and we don't usually get the insights that we're getting from you today. So thank you, and continue.
Yeah, so as far as ward nursing, we might be prepping these people for these appointments or these treatments, as well as those maybe who are not actually having a hospital admission for those treatments. They might be engaging in group therapies or perhaps a medication change. And so a part of our role as a mental health nurse is to check in with the person, monitor, just, make sure that they're okay, support them. So some people might need a bit of encouragement to get up, start the day, establish routine, or I suppose generate that motivation to attend certain programs, try out new skills, bits and pieces. So I suppose our role is not too dissimilar from that of a general nurse, in that general nurses do a lot of that, but it's very physical based, whereas ours is more of like psychological, emotional, even social support in some respects, as well as physical needs as well there too, but not as greatly.
Yes. And I know you do work in a private facility, and so the patients that you are seeing are there of their own volition, aren't they? As opposed to somebody who might be, how would you describe it when somebody is in treatment for their mental health but has not chosen to be there?
So yes, I work in the private setting, which means technically speaking, everybody is voluntary. That is, they're not admitted under the Mental Health Act. So they're not on a temporary treatment order or assessment order or anything like that. They are there voluntarily speaking. I've moved away from ward nursing. I might still do a shift here and there to keep up my skills, but I've moved into the day program outpatient setting. So I work in group therapy. Basically, participants will come in, they're admitted still for maybe a 7 to 10 week period, but they only come in 1 day a week. So they're admitted in the morning and we discharge them in the afternoon, and they complete group therapy in that time. So it's a lot of psychoeducation. But that's not to say that we don't get people who don't want to be there, whether that's inside the hospital as an inpatient or outpatient setting. Sometimes we do get people who feel as if, well, I've been told by the people around me, my doctor's told me to be here, to be doing this, so therefore I am. And yeah, so I suppose that term voluntary can be a little contentious.
Yes.
Who you are. Technically speaking, we're not keeping anyone against their will. They actually have the right to discharge at any point. And we just make sure that they've got all the supports and systems in place that they'll be okay if they do decide to go home. But we cannot keep them.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. It's frightening, the idea of hospitalisation for a mental health condition. I felt that way, although when I needed it, I was desperate. It was way back when I had our daughter and she wouldn't sleep and I wasn't sleeping, and I had postnatal depression, extremely high anxiety. And I remember, Vivienne, what happened was I rang it was called the Mother and Baby Unit, and it was at Rosebud Hospital back then. I don't think it's there anymore. And I composed myself and picked up the phone and, hello, my name's Jody. I'd really like some help. And I kind of got told, look, no problem. Fill out these forms, and when an opening comes up, we'll let you know. And in desperation, I rang my cousin, who had also been a patient at the same clinic years before, and I said, what did they teach you? What helped? I'm desperate. I need anything that I can get. And she said, the best thing that you can do is ring up when you are desperate for the help. And so the next time, which was, it was multiple times a day, when I felt that desperate need for that help, I rang. And instead of being the composed sort of professional sounding woman, I just kind of rang and said, hey, this is what's going on for me. I'm really desperate. And they said, look, you can come in next week. They had a cancellation, as it turned out. And so I was desperate and couldn't wait to get in the doors. But yeah, it's very different. It's very different for everyone. So it's really nice to get a little bit of a window into what it's like for you in your world of mental health nursing. But I'm interested to know, what are some of the misconceptions that people might have about being hospitalised for one's mental health?
Oh, look, I've seen it kind of go in two ways. I suppose first misconception is that if I'm going there, then I'm in a really bad way. Like it must mean that I cannot function as a human, or I'm done. I can't quite articulate that any better, but it's more anguish in people's faces of like, I'm here, I'm defeated, I shouldn't be this way, I shouldn't be this bad, or just that real defeatedness. So there can be apprehensions around like, well, I should just try and get it together. Like I shouldn't need this. That's another manifestation too, is that some people really feel like hospital is reserved for those who are more unwell. Like, oh, I'm not sick enough to be here. I'm taking up a bed space of someone else, is certainly a narrative that I've heard.
Yeah.
And I suppose, in these two things, there's just like really that lack of self-compassion there for either. And then I've also seen too, it's not too often, and it can be really easily worked around. It's a very normal apprehension for people to have when they're actually at the other end of their admission stay. So we're starting to discharge plan, and people are thinking, well, I don't know that I'm going to cope when I'm at home. In other words, spent so long in this bubble, and maybe it's not actually that long, but 2 weeks, this 2 weeks where they've had respite and reprieve and they're starting to get back on their feet. It's a really nice feeling for them. And going home, or the thought of going home to where there's lesser supports and kind of more of that independence needed, is really frightening. And so then it's almost just this lack of self-trust or belief that they will be able to carry on doing what they've been doing with that outside or outpatient support too. And so then like maybe hospital is just where I need to stay. I suppose I kind of see this like it's a bit of influx, and more often, particularly for new people who have never entered the hospital system before, it's really frightening. And I think too, even though we have had so much more education and more realistic views of what mental health system looks like, even through just media and TV, we're getting better at showcasing the full spectrum of what it's like to enter a mental health system. There's still a lot of stigma attached to it, in that it could be really frightening. I'm going to have things imposed on me that aren't my choice, or, just that really stereotypical, really unhelpful. I think about the time that I watched like Nurse Ratched on Netflix, that kind of what it be like. Yeah. I know I've even family members or friends have passed comments, not so nice comments, but I completely understand where they come from, because if that's all we associate with mental health care, that's all we've seen, then of course we're going to think it's like that, but it's actually not. It's not people. At least not where I work. I do really want to preface that. I work in the private sector, and we have a very different like triaging. There are certain levels of risk that we don't accept that would go to public, because we do not have the staffing or the setup to be able to contain, say, that level of risk. So our work environment typically day to day presents as a lot calmer and not in that overly stigmatized kind of idea of what mental health care looks like.
Yes, I think you're exactly right. And one of the things that, anyone who's struggled with their mental health knows that you don't have to look a particular way. There's no one shape, size, face, expression, style of anybody. There is no discrimination when it comes to our mental health. For listeners who, like me, are sort of thinking, gosh, I know when I went to hospital, I knew I needed help. I just was not functioning, not coping at all. But if people are sort of wondering, maybe I do, I'm not sure, is what I'm experiencing to a point where I could do with that extra help? What are you seeing from people who struggle with anxiety, and anxiety is the reason that they've come into the facility that you work in? Kind of how bad is it for these people, so we can kind of paint a little bit of a picture about what anxiety that requires that extra special care kind of looks like?
Yeah. So I suppose the question is like, perhaps what is the criteria?
That's a really good, simple way of putting it. Yes. What is the criteria?
And there's no kind of checklist answer as such, like they need to be needing this, this, and this, because it's very personal. So everyone's, I suppose, level of functioning is going to look very different anyway. But if I can give maybe some examples of what I've seen.
Please.
For anxiety, I've admitted people who the rumination just does not stop. They don't get reprieve, where I might be able to acknowledge, I'm ruminating. Okay, what's one of the skills that I can go to that helps me to circuit break this so that I can, get back on my feet and, I suppose, diffuse from that way of thinking.
Yes.
Others just, they're becoming so distressed in their anxiety that they lose that capacity to even stop and recognize I'm ruminating. It is almost just, it's consuming them. And in that, you might, like, what that would look like, I suppose, outwardly to us is, okay, this person's not really sleeping much. They're not leaving the house much. It's impacting on their ability to work if they are in the workforce. So they're going to work, but the productivity is really low. If they're not working, then they're not engaging in activities that they would usually. So maybe someone might do like volunteering or like caring or something like that. And that's now starting to wreak havoc in those areas of their life. I do see it a lot in like social settings. So people will start to recluse. They don't go out with friends or family as much. They don't call people. That worry and that physiological stress builds up. And one of the things that one of the places that we go to is withdrawal. And that's probably one of the most unhelpful coping strategies. So we start to almost see also, I suppose, a little an impact on relationships. So relationships are becoming strained. I suppose that's on one end of the spectrum, where it's anxiety is becoming to such a level where someone's ability to function is severely impacted. But anxiety could also manifest as sort of that mild to moderate degree. So if I think about like what we call in day programmers subjective units of distress scale, maybe they're sitting at like a 5 or a 6 out of 10, but it's been that way for a long time. And maybe they'd like to get on top of that. So maybe they might come in for medication review, or maybe they'll come in for a specific program, like let's look at emotion regulation. So if anything, it becomes more preventative than it does treatment. It's about preventing the anxiety from blowing out into that 10 out of 10. It's the worst it's ever been, harm minimization. And I kind of want to acknowledge, like, this is the area that I do a fair bit of work in, especially having moved to day programs, so outpatient group therapies. It's the anxiety is manifesting as like, I can't get anything right. I can't hold down relationships, or if relationships really are a big one. It's like when relationships are really strained, things are really hard. But people are also coming in with an exacerbation of perhaps trauma-related symptoms. So it's anxiety plus something else. Anxiety, I don't see too much of just anxiety on its own. It might be anxiety because maybe there's an underlying ADHD or autism that hasn't been diagnosed. So of course this person's anxious because the underlying root of it has never been addressed. Or they're facing complex PTSD. So we need to get on top of that. And naturally the anxiety will start to diminish. And even I come back to this idea of relationships. I do work with a significant population of people with borderline personality disorder, and anxiety is really high in that, because there's this need to connect, this need to attach to others. But then when they do, it becomes quite unstable, and then of course that drives anxiety, and anxiety becomes almost secondary to something else that's going on. So that's a big what I work in. It's like, let's place anxiety to one side for a moment, and let's look at what's actually happened to you or happening to you that's really provoking. Like the anxiety is just
a symptom of something else, essentially. Vivienne, thank you so much for giving us kind of like a bit of a spotlight on the work that you do and the patients that you're working with and some of their experiences. I know it's not easy kind of boiling down the work that you do and the challenges that people are facing in your workplace, but you've done a really beautiful job of painting a picture, and hopefully listeners can kind of think, all right, well, now I've got a bit more of an understanding of what to expect should I ever be admitted, and the types of challenges that people who are admitted are facing, and some might relate to that as well. So I know that in the limited time that we've got together today, one of the really important and powerful parts of the work that you do is your work in mindfulness and meditation. And I'd really love for you to share with us a little about how you got started yourself, because I presume you began with your own personal practice before you started teaching. And then, if we could start to talk about kind of the role that plays in our mental health, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, sure. So I started, it's very much closely tied to when I started nursing. So in 2020, I started this new job, a job that no matter how many years of study you do for, it doesn't really prepare you for what you're going to do on the job, the patient load and all that sort of stuff. It's still a lot of learning when you first start. In amongst all of that, like all of the resources that I typically use that helped me to stay well, which I didn't even have conscious awareness of. I would do these things like go to the gym, hang out with friends, this and that, and I just thought that that's a part of living. But I very soon realized actually they're resources that keep me well and functioning the way that I do. They all got stripped away, and I realized pretty quickly, if I want to keep loving my job, then I'm going to need something that helps me. I need something that's, and frankly, I kind of went into it with this mentality of like, I need something that's going to help me separate, just push that away. But that's how I found meditation. I very simply started with the Calm app, and I started doing 10 minutes in the evening, and I was like, oh, look at that. I might be sleeping a little bit better. And I noticed some traits within me that started to fall away, which is definitely for the better. I'm a Taurus, and if anyone's into star signs, you know that a Taurus is the star sign of the bull, and we can be fierce. We're incredibly loyal and and hardworking, but we're very fierce, which sometimes means we're a bit stubborn, defensive.
I'm a Taurus, and I'm just thinking on your website, you introduce yourself in this way. Hello, I'm Vivienne, a quintessential Taurus, social butterfly, and chips connoisseur. And I thought we could be friends. So
Yes.
when you said the traits of a Taurus, bull in a china shop was how I was called. I used to break things as a kid, and anyway, so I love that. Anyway, I've interrupted you, so please continue. Please go on.
No, and there's still certainly some of those elements there, but I like to think now that they're reserved for when they're needed most, not just out of reactivity. So particularly with someone who would get grumpy and frustrated or, get on that fierce, like kind of take on that persona of a bull quite quickly. And I'm no longer ashamed to admit that because I didn't have awareness. I just was going through life being me.
Yeah.
But what I noticed with meditation is I was like, oh, I'm a bit calmer. And the people around me as well started to kind of go, oh, you're not really so much like this. Or where you used to be really rigid, you're far more relaxed now. And I remember at the time initially I was like, what? That's offensive.
You're insulting me.
But it's true. And I notice it now. If I, for whatever reason, go even so much as like 3 or 4 days without my practice in some kind of way, it doesn't have to look the same every day, but if my practice falls away and I'm still going about the same routines, like or daily structure or tasks, I can kind of like that Taurus comes out of me again. I can start to feel it. And I'm like, oh, because I'm not actually taking time to just pause and let myself be. Yeah. So look, that was my introduction to meditation, and condensing a longer story into, the too long didn't read version. It then prompted me to just go on and start practicing and kind of offering it for other people. So I was going to the gym at the time, and obviously all the classes were online. So I said, hey guys, I'd like to run meditation online. And I did. And then that went out into eventually starting a mindful mind.
Yes.
Teaching classes, out in public now. And when I went and did my meditation teacher training, that's how I came to find mindful self-compassion, which is a form of mindfulness and self-compassion put together. And I went deep. Like if you can fall in love with a topic, I certainly fell.
You can. I really think you can.
And I went, this is it. This is the thing. Because when I was reading it, I was resonating so much with what Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer, so they're the two, I suppose, co-founders or co-creators of Mindful Self-Compassion.
Yes.
I was resonating so much with like their story and their experience of what it's like to hold yourself in criticism and at times contempt and just be really nasty. And I started to realize actually what I was projecting outward was a reflection of how I was holding myself inward. It didn't have anything, at times, it might have had something to do with the other person, but for the most part, my standards, my way of relating to the world was very much reflective of how I was relating to myself and the standards I held for myself, and still to this day at times hold for myself. And so that sparked a very beautiful journey of then learning mindful self-compassion, and I went on to do the teacher training. As part of that, you do the program yourself twice over. And I think that was the best thing about it, is like you're being put in the participant's shoes twice over before you then go into the teacher's shoes. And even now to this day, what's like 3 years later now, when I teach it, I still get so much out of it. I'm like, oh, Viv, you had this difficult emotion and that was the way that you responded to yourself. That could have been an opportunity for compassion, and we'll just hold that whole experience in kindness because you did the best that you could, and now you know differently. Next time, maybe it'll look a little like this. And like that for me has been transformative. And truthfully, when we were talking about mental health and why people are coming and what are the barriers that people face in hospitalization, a huge amount of it is self-worth based. Like this, there is this belief that I'm not worthy of receiving care, that other people are more important than me, or that there's no point because it's never going to get better. There is such a deep-seated unworthiness. Like, if COVID was our most recent, overt pandemic, like, unworthiness is underpinning almost every presentation that I see in day program. In one of the groups that I ran the other day, we were talking about this person's experience, or it was an interaction with someone else. And I said, what did that bring up for you? And the person started to get tears in their eyes. And I said, what's happening? What's this feeling? And they identified it. They said shame. And I was like, well, what's the story? And it's like, I'm not enough. And there we go. It's this unworthiness that underpins all of our suffering. Maybe not all, but a lot of our suffering. And that was something that for a long time I was carrying around completely unawares. So meditation and mindfulness for me have been really profound.
And isn't it not funny, but you looked for something to sort of separate from the work, to kind of, like, I guess, put a line underneath your day, and inevitably it's probably been one of the most profound additions to the work that you do, and in supporting you and supporting the people that you work with, your meditation training and your self-compassion training and practice of both. Of course, it's so beautifully complementary.
Yeah, absolutely. And funny enough, in maybe the way, if I landed in this place where I'm like, actually, I can separate my work and my personal life, in that it's okay for me to, if I find myself feeling a little heavy because of the space that I've held during the day, then it's okay for me to feel that way, because it means I care. And also, just as a human who experiences the full spectrum of human emotions, as does every human, it's actually okay that I feel the way that I do. That's it, full stop. It's okay that we feel the way that we do. And that's been quite profound.
It really has. And I didn't know you before your meditation practice began, and you've gone on this journey, but from the moment that we started corresponding, when I first reached out to you, and then meeting you, and of course having time to talk after your time with the staff at the Wellbeing Day, and I want to ask you next about your sound meditation. You exude a calmness. There's a real lovely calm about you, and that's in the way that you hold yourself, in the way that you speak, the way that you listen. And so you've really embodied everything that it is that you're passionate about, and it shows. As someone who didn't know you beforehand, maybe I might recognise, if we spend enough time together, I might recognise if you'd gone a few days without your practice. But but the sound meditation that you also deliver, it doesn't feel like the right word, but that you share with participants, is just so beautiful. And I wonder, can you tell us, how did you discover sound meditation? Perhaps some listeners have never even heard of it. So tell us all about it.
Sound meditation wasn't originally where I started. I began with a lot of guided practice, using mindfulness meditation, self-compassion based meditation, breath awareness meditation. They're kind of my three modalities they're my bread and butter. And then I started to experiment with sound because of where I was working at the time as a meditation teacher, which is, I'm happy to give them a shout out. It's Mirasuna in South Melbourne.
Great. Yes. Mirasuna. How do you spell that?
Mirosuna. It's a gorgeous studio in South Melbourne. Sally is incredible. And she just lives and breathes like mindfulness, meditation, and just such generosity of spirit, and just took me under her wing, gave me a lot of training, and also gave me the space to experiment really with sound meditation. And what I found is that for me, sound meditation, as someone who was never musically, well, I shouldn't say never musically gifted. I did trumpet when I was in year 7 and 8.
Not very relaxing kind of instrument to to listen to when someone's learning.
Not at all. But and I could have been good at it. I just didn't apply myself. That was always on my report card. Could do better if it's your plan.
I think we've all had a report card like that.
Yeah. So for someone who has never been like, big and musically trained, sound meditation for me is a form of play and creativity where I just go, I really like this. I love this sound. I love the way these two bowls sound together. I love the combination of this instrument. What would this sound like if I did this? It is, for me, an outlet of play and creativity and curiosity. And, as an adult, we need those qualities. We just as much as children do for thriving. And I just started to learn. I mean, there obviously there's a little bit of science and also energetics based in that too, in that each of the notes is attuned to a different energy center within the body. Maybe I could send you a resource that you can put in show notes or something like that, because this will be a bit easier visually.
Thank you. Yes.
But essentially, I started with crystal and alchemy singing bowls. So these are bowls that are perhaps a quartz crystal base and then have had other gemstones or minerals infused inside them. So that's what alchemy crystal bowls are, and usually that combination, whereas crystal singing bowls are generally a 99% crystal quartz makeup. And you can get various sizes and notes and even octaves, and you can really dive in deep into the musical sort of element of it. But for me as a practitioner, I don't profess myself as a sound healer. That's not what I do. I don't go into these practices with the intention of I'm going to heal this part and this and this. And for me, it's, I want to hold space for you to have your own experience. And I also want to offer you something else to anchor to. So we are bombarded by so much in our day to day, and my voice has the potential to be that something else. Not everyone actually can follow vocal guidance all the time. And sound is so powerful in that it kind of bypasses certain pathways and hooks attention in. I've seen it to be quite effective, say for, and this is not just a blanket statement, I'm going to say, in perhaps for some people with the diagnosis of ADHD, where the attention is just, it's kind of, it has difficulty staying put.
Yes.
Sound becomes this thing of wow, I'm hearing that over there, and then it feels like it's circling over here, and I'm feeling this in my body. It creates this real experiential, I was about to say experiential experience.
Yes,
but sense experience, and in that can be just what the person needs to pull them away from the task list, the rumination, the whatever it is that person has come into the practice carrying. It just gets placed to one side, and now I'm actually present, mind, body, spirit, through all the senses, because of what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling, what this is bringing up inside of me. And it's just, I've had some quite really, really important insights that have come from sound meditations as well. I've seen certain visions that have been very reflective. I'm happy to share one. It doesn't mean I'm seeing bright lights and I'm kind of levitating or anything like that.
Please,
I was engaging in one sound meditation, as in I was the participant, and I could see, those flour mills, you're pouring in something and then it's bringing out a
ground, like it's grinding the wheat, or is that what you mean? As in FLOUR, flour?
Yeah. So it's it's grinding something, and so essentially you're pouring in a lot and you're getting out something that's really fine and not a lot. After that meditation, I went, that's really interesting. All right, I'm going to draw that in my journal. And then days later, I kind of came to the realization, actually, you're pouring a lot of energy into these things and you're not getting a lot back. And it's not about that you always have to get something back, but
of course, yeah,
there's nothing left of you. You're pouring your whole self into these areas of your life, which was at the time predominantly work.
Yes.
And there's nothing left of you. And so what's that telling you? And so this is what I mean by insights can be obtained. You can get that through vocal meditation, most definitely. But for some people, it's actually greater accessed through sound.
Yes.
And of
Changes
course, all the relaxing elements of it too, in that sound, just like meditation practice, it invites the brain waves to start to soften and drop down into deeper levels. So we experience a deeper state of relaxation. And for some people, that's really hard to get to with vocal guidance. So sound, again, just helps with that dropping in. And generally people feel like, I've just had the best nap, but I wasn't napping.
That's exactly what I was thinking before about the brain waves, and that we spend so long in beta, in doing and, being productive, whereas when we and listeners might relate, and I was having this conversation with the kids in the car the other day because I was talking about how the screen just seems to fill all the gaps where once there might have been some space and some time and some, contemplation and just thinking and reflecting and just daydreaming. And we were talking about that, and I was just sort of saying, we need that. That's why we have limits on the kids' phones, etc. And that, sometimes an insight might come in the shower. I mean, that's a classic kind of example, isn't it? And so thank you so much for sharing that. You did have something that was quite a profound insight that had you not carved out or taken time to experience the sound meditation that you engaged in that day or on a regular basis with your own mindfulness and meditation practices, it might have been years gone by before you had enough space and time to be able to kind of look at what's happening for you. Because that's the thing, isn't it? We get so swept away in what we're doing and in the work, in getting things done, whereas when we get that time and space to kind of step out, zoom out a bit and look at what's happening, then you've obviously been able to make changes because of the insight that you had, which will change the trajectory of your life, not only the day-to-day experience. And had you not practiced a mindfulness practice of any kind, that insight may have never come to you. And it just shows the power of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on that just hearing you sort of reflect that back to me, it highlights really the most important thing, that like the essence of meditation. And I know some people will carry this idea of, I have to be free of thought, or if I think, then I'm not meditating right. And I'm like, actually, you are. Like, if you notice that you're thinking, if you notice that you're feeling, if you notice that you're getting distracted, that is the practice. And then the second part of the practice is becoming acquainted with your patterning. Like, when you notice these things, you're becoming more aware of your patterning. So when that thought comes up, what happens next typically? Like, what follows that thought? And we become aware of our patterns, and suddenly it's like, I understand how I operate inside this and this mind. And that transfers out to day, and very, I suppose that's the power of meditation too, is that it doesn't have to be just breath awareness or mindfulness meditation. Meditation can be so zoned in. Like I recently did a collection of, I think it was 6 or 7 meditations for someone, reflecting what they were covering in therapy. So it was like, okay, this is the work that you're doing to work on anxiety, perfectionism, and this person actually has a mental health diagnosis as well.
Yes.
And so, okay, as part of that, we're using meditation as a modality to have intentional practice, embodied practice. And in that, like when we carve out time in that way, it's like going to the gym. You go to the gym and you work on particular muscle groups or your cardiovascular strength. It's very intentional. Meditation has that exact same capacity, but for your mind, and just, that way of relating to yourself. So you get to know things like patterns, you get to know what, I suppose, that trigger point between response and reactivity, is the line for me. How am I really is like one of my most favorite questions getting people to ask when they drop in is like, how actually am I in this moment? Beyond how I think I am, how am I actually feeling in this moment? And it's just a really powerful way of getting to know oneself, and that is not just for the benefit of the person themselves, but also the people around you too, the world around you.
It is, and we don't pause enough to ask that question, and it's a question. It's a beautiful question to be sharing with listeners. How am I really? Because rarely do we stop and really check in with ourselves, and then once we can answer that for ourselves, then we can better answer, what do I need? What do I need right now? In the same way that, how am I? I've injured my knee. All right, well, then I need to maybe get to the pool or do something, or maybe skip the gym, or we can tune in with ourselves physically. We're so less likely to check in with ourselves emotionally, are we? And then also kind of make kind of healthy choices about what it is that we might need next. The present moment awareness, I just really invite anyone listening to pay attention, or begin to pay attention, or raise your awareness around how present are you when you're with the people that you care about. I'm always watching YouTube videos to, sometimes when I'll sit with a cuppa, or I'll watch a YouTube video to learn something or to strengthen my knowledge around a particular topic. And I was watching one just this morning, and there was a discussion around regrets of people who are older. And one of the regrets most people shared was around not spending enough time with people, or being around people but not really being with them. And I think that I often think, like with my kids at 14 and 16, I think, gosh, we're with each other a lot of the time, but I'm not always present. And there's so much that can just pass us by. And when it comes to our mental health and happiness, those connections are just so powerful. And so there's so much to be gained from starting a practice. And there's a lot of resistance, though, isn't there? We're just about out of time, actually. But you shared that you started with the Calm app. So as we sort of finish our conversation today, Viv, I wonder what suggestion you might have for someone thinking, hey, look, I know I need this. I'd really like to start. And even a minute a day is infinitely better than zero time when it comes to a mindful practice. And no doubt starting is often the hardest part. What would you recommend to people who really want to kind of just take that first step towards starting a practice?
Yeah, to that, I would say start with 5 minutes. That's it. And I mean, yeah, really, you could stretch that out to 1 minute. And I guarantee that if someone's sitting down for 1 minute, they're going to sit for another minute or two longer.
Yes.
So, yeah, definitely start with 5 minutes. Interestingly enough, the research around meditation isn't so much that it's the quantity, the duration that you're doing the practice for, but that consistency of it. So we know through research that people who meditate 10 minutes a day and maybe 3 times of 10 minutes a day, they have better well-being outcomes than someone who was trying to get that 20-minute mark and having it be really stressful every single day, or perhaps every second day. We're just looking for consistency. If you can pause, check in, great, move along with the day, and then perhaps insert another little pocket at lunchtime, like 5 minutes just to sit. Okay, I'm going to take a few deep breaths. I'm going to relax the body. I'm just going to drop into how I feel. Okay, all right, is there anything that I need? No, or yeah. And then we can move along. That has far better outcomes for the individual than someone who's trying to cram in. I really want to stress that, that idea of striving to attain this perfect practice of, I have to do it 20 minutes in the morning when I first wake up, and I have to be sitting upright. Meditation's not so much about the fact that you carve out the time. It's the attitude that you have towards the practice. And meditation shouldn't really be a chore. It's not something that you're ticking the box and going, okay, well, I've been told this is good for my well-being, I'm just going to do it. meditation is just about spending time with yourself. And can you do that in the most lovely way possible, most comfortable way possible? So for some people, that might just be sitting up in bed and they've got their kid next to them in bed, sitting up in bed, and you're just sitting together and you've both got your eyes closed maybe. And maybe your child is fidgeting around, but that can be okay. You know what? Contrary to what any parent out there is thinking, your child fidgeting next to you doesn't actually ruin the practice. You thinking that it ruins the practice.
Yes.
I know that's so controversial, but
yes.
Other people, it might be go and sit on your bench outside and your dog's near you, or you've got the sounds of the wind or something like that. And others, it might be, I like to sit up straight because I love this feeling of strength and resolve that I get out of it when I sit in this posture. And it's like, great, you know what, if that makes you feel good, go for it. It could be lying down. It doesn't actually matter what the practice looks like or how long that it goes for. What matters is that you feel good going to it, which means you're more likely to continue with it.
Yeah.
Things that bring us contentment, we cannot overlook contentment. Things that bring us that feeling of content or joy, we are more likely to seek out. That's what those emotions actually activate within us. I want to do that again. So if you make meditation enjoyable, you betcha you're going to go back to it. That's just how it's emotionally driven.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful, Vivienne. Thank you. And you have shared so beautifully and so generously with us. How can listeners connect with you and work with you and enjoy one of your beautiful classes here in Melbourne?
So listeners can find me through amindfulmind.com.au. That has a list of all of my services. I've got meditation classes, which I teach at the moment on a Monday evening out of Hyatt, a lovely space called Flourish in Hyatt. And I will eventually look to add a morning slot on another day of the week. That's to be advised. I'll take my self-compassion break to mull that over as to which day that is.
Yes.
But I also hold what's called Soulful Sundays. So for anyone who was really interested in the meditation element and mindful self-compassion element and sound, it is just this really lovely integration of the three. So each Soulful Sunday, which runs once a month, generally the third Sunday of the month, which we've got coming up very soon.
Yes.
And so we flow through a quick little topic theme. I always bring like a very different theme each month, and we meditate on that theme. And sound is a part of that as a way of dropping in. And then there's a bit of journaling. And if anybody would like to, there is a portion at the end of the practice where we debrief. We bask in what is called common humanity, this likeness. You know, this is what I experienced. Oh my gosh, me too. Or mine was a little different, but I can certainly resonate with that. And that is the most unifying thing and probably the most impact out of Soulful Sundays, which I quite like. So there's meditation classes, Soulful Sundays, and then more so, I suppose, on the bigger end of things is mindful self-compassion as a program itself. So I'm a trained mindful self-compassion teacher through the Center of MSc in the US. And I'll be running my next courses starting next year. Those dates are going to go up on the website really soon, but I'm actually just putting the final touches on a self-compassion based retreat, which will be in April 2025 down in Jan Juk. And spots will be open really, really soon. There'll only be 8 for that. And that's 4 days of self-compassion based workshops, daily sunrise meditation. There's sound in there as well. It is like, it's the works.
Sounds
it's really quite delightful. That retreat is aimed at anyone who's really ready to start changing how they relate to themselves. Like, okay, I could be holding myself a little more lightly, the way that I would hold other people. How do I do that? This is what we go through on the retreat. So it's not a huge amount of R&R time as such. I mean, there's definitely pockets of that because we need that for integration, but it is very much a experiential retreat. We're diving in, we're doing self-inquiry, we're learning, practicing, and integrating, which is really quite special.
Oh, gosh. Vivienne, the work that you're doing is really important, and the opportunities that you are creating for people to connect with you and work with you. And I know that you've also got recordings on Insight Timer as well. So there are a multitude of ways that people can spend time with you. And so I'm very grateful. I know you have shared so generously with us today, and that we are out of time, but I just really want to thank you for the work that you are doing, the way you go about it, and for sharing with us today and joining me as a guest.
Oh, thanks so much, Jodie. And I'm so grateful to you for reaching out to me. I'm in awe of the work that you're doing and getting these conversations around anxiety and how do we still live a really good life with this, with these feelings, and I think it's really important. So thank you for having me on and offering me the space to speak to topics that are really close to my heart.
Thank you again. And your gorgeous pooch stayed super quiet, which she must have known. Viv and I both have border collies, or Vivienne's dog is a border collie cross Kelpie. So we share the love of dogs as well. So thanks again, Viv, and thank you, listeners. Thank you for joining me for this really special conversation. I really hope that, you've been inspired to take that step if you've been thinking about it for a while. First step's often the hardest, but it will be self-fulfilling, as Vivienne was explaining. That joy and that contentment will help you to make that a part of your daily kind of routine. So be kind to yourself, show yourself a lot of kindness and love and compassion, and please connect with Vivienne, because she's a beautiful leader in this space, and I know from her we can continue to learn a lot. So thanks again for joining me today, and I'll be back with another episode next week. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodie Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.